And we welcome from Calgary, Alberta, Imam Syed Soharwardy. He is the founder of the Islamic Supreme Council and Muslims Against Terrorism. And it's nice to have you here in our studio at TVO.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'd like to start by reading just an excerpt of the Fatwa that you put out. And here it goes. We, the undersigned imams, are issuing the following Fatwa in order to guide the Muslims of North America regarding the attacks on Canada and the United States by the terrorists and the extremists. In our view, these attacks are evil, and Islam requires from Muslims to stand up against this evil. You did that in January of this year. Why did you find it important to write a fatwa condemning terrorism?
It is absolutely very important because there are people from the Muslim community who are using Islam and trying to justify attacks on United States or Canada or the Western world or anywhere in the world to kill innocent civilian and people. So that is, I think it is an obligation upon all of us as a Muslim to stand up and say, no, this has nothing to do with Islam. Islam absolutely condemns it. There is a punishment for those people who carry out these kind of heinous crimes, even against any segment of society, whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim, Jews, Christians, Hindus, Sikhs, atheists. You cannot do these things in the name of Islam.
And there were,
that's why.
What, 29 or so who signed that one? Is that right?
That's right, yes.
Okay. Now, in 2005, there were 120 imams from Canada who signed the following statement, and I want to read a little excerpt of that if I can. Those who would use violence for their twisted acts betray the most basic value of the sanctity of human life. We have opposed and will continue to oppose all extremism, hate, and terrorism. Anyone who claims to be a Muslim and participates in any way in the taking of innocent life is betraying the very spirit and letter of Islam. We categorically and unequivocally reject such acts. We will confront and challenge the extremist mindset that produces this perversion of our faith. We remind Canadian Muslims that no injustice done to Muslims anywhere can ever justify the taking of innocent life. All life, whether here or abroad, is sacred. Again, Council on American Islamic Relations Canada, that back from 2005. I want to understand the distinction between a fatwa, which you did this year, and a statement, which was done 5 years ago. In other words, how much more weight does a fatwa have over a statement?
Fatwa has relatively more weight. The reason is it's a religious decree. It's an opinion of Islamic scholars about a certain issue or problem that is conveyed to people based upon the teachings of Quran and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So it has more weight because it is binding for those people who definitely followers of those imams, and it is a guidance for those people who may not be the followers of the imams, but because the statement or the fatwa is based upon the teachings of Quran, so it becomes an obligation upon every Muslim to follow. They may disagree with it, but we have given this fatwa based upon the teachings of Quran and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that innocent people cannot be killed, even they belong to your enemy's country or group. You cannot kill your children or women, because that is a very clear guide. There is no ambiguity about these kind of guidance. So when people start using Islam and carrying out these crimes, that bothers every Muslim.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question here that I hope you will not find insolent, but let me try here. 9/11 happened in 2001. The statement I just read, the excerpt of which, was 2005. Your fatwa is 2010. What took you so long?
No, it's absolutely not. I established Muslims Against Terrorism way before 9/11. I established Muslims Against Terrorism starting from Calgary in 1998. And we issued our statement back in 2005. In 2001, I had issued a statement against the attacks on the on World Trade Center. And back in 2002, we issued fatwa against Taliban, that they were attacking not only United States, but they were also forbidding the women's education, girls' education. So these have been issued in many times, so this is not the first time.
That's interesting though, Imam, because you created this organization, Muslims Against Terrorism, actually 2 years before 9/11.
Exactly.
Why did you feel a need to do that?
Yes, so there was an incident, it's a long story, I'll make it short. There were some Americans, they were touring Malaysia back in, I think, late 97 or early 98. And they were touring, and then there was news in the media that these Americans have been kidnapped by some group in Philippines, and they have taken them and they were asking ransom for it. And I said, excuse me, how you can kidnap innocent people even they are not Muslim? And how can you ask ransom for these things? This is not Islam, this is against Islam. So then, and there was definitely an emerging trend within the Muslim community that they were doing these extremist actions, which is definitely a crime in the eyes of Islam. So I said, okay, no, I think it's a time we need to stand up and educate people that the Muslims absolutely are against terrorism, fanaticism, and extremism, and that's why I established this organization.
Did you get much pushback from other imams against creating this organization?
Yeah, there was a pushback. There was definitely disagreement with many people, because they were saying, the thing is, if we continue to deny that Muslims are the best peaceful human being and they have nothing to do with this terrorism, I think that's a denial, and that's not the right thing to do. I think we need to recognize the problem first. There is a problem within the Muslim community that people are committing terrorism in the name of Islam. They are quoting verses from the Quran. They are quoting verses, the hadith or the sayings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So we recognize this problem, and I said, I think we have to start fixing this problem. Unless we don't recognize the problem, how we can fix it? So recognition is first.
Why would there be a problem in Western societies, in the Muslim community, those members having sympathy for what happened on 9/11? Why would that even exist?
Sympathy with the terrorists?
Yeah.
The thing is, because of internet, because of satellite television, because of so much travel around the world has become a global village now. It is in true sense. So there are people who are extremists. There are people who just want to kill people because they don't like. So those kind of influences are available to everyone who have access to internet.
How big a percentage of the, this is difficult to say obviously, but in Canada here, you told me before we started on the air tonight that every weekend you are traveling. You
Yes.
live in Calgary, but you are traveling the country every weekend to go speak to Muslims. So you have a good sense, I would suspect, about the community. What percentage of the community sympathized with what happened on 9/11?
I think it's a very, very small.
How small?
I cannot give you a number, but definitely it's very small. What is more dangerous compared to who is really fanatic in Canada? I think the most dangerous thing, as a Canadian, we need to understand the ideology of terrorism, the ideology of intolerance for disagreement. That is definitely is in the community, and we need to counter that ideology that creates fanaticism and the extremism. And that is absolutely there. We don't have a tolerance for disagreement. And this is absolutely a major issue with Muslims. We need to educate Muslims that we can disagree and still can live in peace.
Is there any community in Canada in particular that you think has more difficulty accepting that notion than others?
Yes, there is a group within the Muslim community that they have no tolerance for disagreement, even within Muslim community.
And where are they?
I mean, I don't like to mention names. I think it won't be a good thing, but there are people in our society, in our community, around the world, in Canada, that they have no respect for disagreement.
Okay, but are they located in one particular community versus another?
I mean, mostly they are the people who are influenced by the Saudi ideology. That Saudi ideology has absolutely no tolerance. I mean, there have been more Muslims killed by the people who follow the Saudi ideology than any other group within the Muslim community. And that intolerance has to be countered. That intolerance has to be rejected by the Muslims.
Where do you think, Imam, where does this notion come from that disagreement is not accepted in the Muslim community, that arguments, that debates cannot be held? Where does that come from?
I have no idea.
Really?
When I look at the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when I look the companions of Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family, there has been disagreement right in front of Prophet, among the companions, not with the Prophet, but among the companions. There has been several incidents where the companions disagree on certain issues and problems. And Prophet encouraged that. And he says, it's good, it's healthy, because you are not going to unite on something wrong. So this is definitely not an Islamic idea, not to have tolerance for disagreement.
You know, there's an old expression, you put 4 Jews in a room, you'll get 5 opinions. I can say this, I'm Jewish, so I can get away with saying an ethnic stereotype joke like that. Why isn't that the case in the Muslim community?
Oh, Muslim have the same thing too. I mean, if you put 4 imams in the room, you will have 6 disagreements. But the thing is, who can tolerate that disagreement? Who can say, yes, we can disagree, but still we are good brothers and sisters?
And when you say it's the Saudi, is it the Wahhabis you're talking about?
That's the ideology that creates problems, intolerance within the Muslim community, that you cannot disagree. Whatever I'm saying is right, and if you disagree with it, you are absolutely wrong. And that is intolerance, which is killing Muslims and destroying the Muslim community.
Let me, Michael, I'm going to skip the board and let's go to the CBC clip. This is at the end of March. Muhammad Tahir ul Qadri, Muslim scholar, former legal advisor on Islamic law to Pakistan Supreme Court. You know him, of course. He released a fatwa on suicide bombings and terrorism. This is what he told the CBC. Roll tape, please.
Those who are committing terroristic acts, irrespective of the fact whether you are killing a peaceful Muslim or a peaceful non-Muslim, Islam has not created any distinction between the two. The same are the consequences if you kill a non-Muslim citizen, a civilian, as were the consequences if you kill a Muslim civilian. Every person who is non-combatant.
What do you think of his interpretation there?
Absolutely right. Dr. Tahir al-Qadri is a very well-respected Islamic scholar from Pakistan. I know him very well. He knows me very well. And so we are from the same ideology, that the disagreement can be tolerated and should be tolerated.
Do you think your fatwa makes clear the distinction between the killing of Muslims or non-Muslims?
Yes, I think our fatwa is very clear that killing any innocent civilians, regardless whatever their religion is, whatever their background is, whatever ethnicity they are, it is absolutely un-Islamic, it's wrong, and it should be condemned, and it should be brought to justice.
Do you think that this campaign of yours is working? And can you tell if it is?
I think it's working because I travel across this country. Every time when I go to different city, I meet sometimes new people, sometimes same old people. And when especially with the youth, when I interact with them, I find it's working. But it's not working the way I want it to work at a very vast level where could I reach out to every Muslim or non-Muslim youth. But whatever my limitations are, whatever my circle is, I think within that circle, it's working. We are changing people's mind. I mean, there are youth in Calgary, for example. A few years ago, a young boy came to me and he says, what is this America is doing on Muslims is absolutely wrong, and we should stand up against it. I said, yes, definitely, we should stand up against any injustice in the society. But how we should stand up, that is the question. Becoming a suicide bomber, or standing up and writing against it, speaking against it, educating people against it. That's what it is I think we need to do. Injustice against any segment of society is not acceptable to all Canadians, not just to Muslims.
I have a little short story I want to share with you and then get your reaction to it. I know I spoke to a candidate who was running in a recent election campaign, and I shouldn't say who the candidate is, but he told me he was knocking on doors, and he went into a Muslim home, and he saw on the wall of this home, while he was campaigning, a photo of the Twin Towers in New York City exploding. And the direct inference that he took from this was that the people in that home thought that was a pretty neat thing, and that they weren't condemning it. They thought it was okay. And in fact, it was it's almost as if the picture was on the wall as if it were in a trophy case. This was a middle-class home in a suburb of Toronto. If that attitude is out there in a middle-class home in a suburb of Toronto, do you not have a huge job ahead of you?
Absolutely. And that's the job I'm trying to perform and I'm carrying out for the last 8-9 years. And that's what we all Muslims need to do, to reach out to those people who have been influenced by misguidance, misinformation, un-Islamic ideology, and that's what we need to do. It's a definitely uphill battle.
Do you feel you're spitting into the wind? Because there are, of course, imams out there in the mosques who are preaching something very different from what you're saying.
Absolutely. I know that, and I recognize that problem. There are people within the Muslim community who are in a leadership role, and they are not doing what we're supposed to do as a Muslim, as a believer, as the follower of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And that is definitely a struggle, and we will continue that struggle.
But why would a Canadian-born Muslim, maybe his parents or her parents are from another country, but why, you occasionally see this where there's a radicalized second generation in the country, which doesn't, conventional wisdom says that doesn't make sense. The more time you spend here in Canada, the less this should be a factor of your personality. Why is that not the case too often?
I mean, it's not a widespread problem, but it is a problem. I'm not saying that there is no problem. It is a problem. That's what we are educating people that this is not right thing. The injustices that our youth, especially our youth, feels what is going on in the world on a political and economic level, that creates some rebellion in the minds and hearts of those people. I think as a religious leader, it is our obligation to reach out to those youth and educate them that, yes, whatever injustice is going on against Muslims around the world or wherever it is happening, how to handle it. I mean, that's the education piece. Handling cannot be an extremist, suicide bombing, killing, becoming a terrorist. That is not the way to go. The way to go is to stand up on your 2 feet and educate people, work hard, make sure that you reach out to those people who are not able to get their fair share within the community, within the society. I think that's what we need to do. And that problem is there. I mean, this problem, if this problem is not there, then we do not need Muslims against terrorism. But the problem is there, and this problem can be fixed through education, through leadership, through reaching out, not isolation. I mean, there are youth who are isolated in the society. I mean, the biggest problem with the Muslim youth in Canada or in the United States is that these people in the home, they have a different environment. Outside home, they have a different environment. In a school, they are a different environment. So their personality, it's a multiple personality in one person.
So what would you like the non-Muslim community to have? What kind of influence would you like it to bring to bear on young Muslims in this case?
Exactly the way Prophet, peace be upon him, has preached. He has given us the guidance when you live in a non-Muslim society, in a non-Muslim country, how you are going to live. The first migrant from the Muslim community was, they migrated from Mecca to Ethiopia. That was a Christian country. How they lived, we need to live like them and not becoming an arrogant or somebody who creates problem for the society. No.
Understood. Imam, it's very good of you to visit us at TVO tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for having me.